All right. Another Thursday, another Webflow SEO live stream, and today we will be talking about different pricing models for different types of Webflow-driven businesses. Whether you're a freelancer, a big agency, an enterprise partner, or just starting out, there are many things to consider how to deliver value to our clients in the best possible manner, and also make a living and make sure that the pricing model uh, fits your overview of how things have to be done and what kind of work you like to do and what kind of tasks you want to take over and how your day-to-day life looks. And today our guest is Dylan Harrocks. Let me know if I butchered your name. You should be able now. Yeah. Hey, Dylan. I think you should have to unmute yourself because I just tried. Yeah. Hey, Dylan.
I'm in. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I was really excited. Past few weeks, I kind of were skipping on guests because there was some stuff happening in life. But overall, really excited to have you here. And for those who don't know Dylan, let me show you some stuff. This should be, yeah. So for those who don't know Dylan, follow him on Twitter at Dylan H. Harrocks. By the way, it's Harrocks or I'm butchering the name?
You are smashing it, Harrocks. Very good.
Okay, cool.
Dylan J. Harrocks on Twitter.
Okay, so follow him on Twitter, and he also is co-founder. Is that the correct name? Or?
Nope, just founder, lone founder.
Okay, so founder of Nexus Creative, they do Webflow design and development, and they do that on subscription. So we already know your favorite pricing model, but we're gonna get to why. And this is an infinite subscription, right, that you guys do?
Exactly, yeah. Inspired by, I'm sure you've obviously heard Design Joy. That was where I first got the idea, and it's unlimited design and development subscription.
Okay, and also I noticed on your side that you guys are looking for, you have open positions for both part-time and full-time. Tell us more about that side of things for those who are a little bit curious about, finding work in Webflow community and things like that.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing this up, actually. I didn't think about talking about this on here, but it's a good idea. So we are sort of actively looking for new people to bring into the team and our sort of roster. Work, can sometimes just we get loads of clients coming at once, so it's always nice to have someone that we can bounce off of. We have recently done a new hire, a new Webflow developer, so we might not need that. We're not actively seeking that, you could say, and I might need to adjust that on the website. But if you're looking for work, then definitely get in contact. And I'm sure there's going to be another positioning opening up for Webflow development very soon. Just email me or hello@Nexus Creative.
Okay, and as always, you can find all the links in the description, both Twitter for Dylan, their Instagram for Nexus Creative, Dylan's Twitter, as I mentioned, and of course their website is also in the links below. So if you want to catch up or just get in touch or have any ideas that you could collaborate or anything else, just feel free to get in touch with them. That being said, our today's topic, as we just said in the beginning, is monetization. But before that, we have to say hello to everybody who's here with us today. So hey, Aruna, thanks for joining us. This is awesome. Hey, Penny, good morning from Canada. I hope it's warm there and you guys enjoying the weather and having fun. And also, Penny, let us know how was the conference this weekend. Would love to hear more about that. So let's jump. Hey, and Shane is here, also was in the same conference. So if you want to chat about that and share any insights in the comments, feel free. But today we're talking about pricing. And as you know, tangents are always welcomed. First of all, I have just a question for you in general, like always. So tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get where you got, and what kind of wins and turmoils you've been through and all that good stuff, the basic, hey, I'm Dylan stuff.
Yeah, okay, I could give you the whole spiel, the whole walkthrough. So I was born in Portugal. I ended up moving to the south of Spain very early on, and went to school there. Didn't enjoy it too much. Turns out I've recently found out I've got ADHD, and I've always had ADHD. So I wasn't the best kid in school, pretty hyperactive, got in trouble a lot of the times. And while I was there, I'd started doing YouTube intros on Cinema 4D, 3D intros for YouTubers that I liked. And I realized I really enjoyed the creative side of things. But unfortunately, I couldn't really get paid to do YouTube intros. No one really, not at that age at least, when I was 14. So I ended up, yes. So I ended up doing an internship for graphic design when I was just 15 years old. At the same time as school, I'd finish school and go straight there. And I just ended up saying to my mum, listen, I don't want to finish doing school anymore. I'm not going to end up doing very well. So let me just start getting experience and working in it straight away. I feel like if the younger I do it, I'm just going to end up being so much further than people finishing university with a degree, just because of all of the experience I'd have. So then I tried to do some freelancing. Turns out that it's pretty hard to get freelancing work as a 17-year-old, unless you're really, really amazing, which I don't think I was. Looking back at the work then, I wasn't the best. So then I did freelance at the same time as club promoting. I went into basically selling tables and selling entries at different nightclubs. So then from that, it would be just the summers I'd be working on the club promotion, and then in the winters I'd find different type of work. Maybe it would be bar work, or it would be different things like that. Then COVID came along, and obviously it was a horrible thing to happen. Pandemic wasn't fun for everyone, but it was really a wake-up call for me, because all of my work that I was doing at that time came to a halt. And I always had this idea to create Nexus Creative, which was originally going to be this virtual agency where we'd have a big roster of freelancers, and if the client needed a specific type of service, we'd be able to accommodate them. Slowly over time, I realized the less services that I offered, the more work I'd get and the better the work would become. So I started, not offering SEO. I started not offering paid ads, started reducing my services until it just became to web design and web development. And going into that, I started with WordPress. That was very messy. That wasn't very fun whatsoever. So many bugs would always happen, as I'm sure a lot of people know. So from that, I hired someone called Ethan Suero. He's a really prolific Webflow developer. He's really come up the ranks, especially since when I've met him. And he introduced me to Webflow, and ever since then I fell in love with it. And it's been about 3 years now of really getting into Webflow. And recently I had shifted what Nexus Creative did maybe a year ago into just Webflow development. And maybe 6 months ago I changed into the subscription model, which I'm now in. And it's been the best decision I've ever made. And I'm so happy with how it's going. So I'm excited to talk about that with everyone.
Okay, best decision you ever made. Always exciting to jump into, and it's been, as you just said, like brewing for a few years. Even the project itself had like branches prior to that. So it seems like the decision you made was really well thought, and you're the right person to talk about pricing models with us today. It's kind of, I'm so excited, actually. Love the story. This is insane that you were so young and were like, yeah, let's jump into the job market. You know what I need now? Job market experience.
I tried to look into the future. I said, okay, in 5 years, maybe if I really struggle, I'll just about get a degree, and it won't be a very good one. Or I can just try and get lots of experience, and maybe that would make me more hireable. And I think I'm glad with the decision I made. Obviously, a lot of people can do really well with a degree. It makes sense for a lot of people, but for me, an undiagnosed ADHD person, was not a very good idea to stay in the school system.
Yeah, and especially now when jobs we have didn't exist a few years ago, or at best a decade ago they showed up. So you cannot get degree in Webflow, and you cannot get that degree in SEO.
No.
Yeah, Shane is saying that you're a true entrepreneur at heart. So I mean, and Penny, you commented at the beginning that this was a Webflow meetup. So yeah, where Shane and Penny met probably. And they're probably having now a different Slack chat next to the YouTube. So they're just, having combo there. Okay, jokes aside, let's jump into the topic. So, we're kind of starting off with the different monetization strategies, and can we call them contract types? Because I think it's kind of accurate to call in general what you have, connection you have with your client, contract types, right?
Yeah, like you could call it, I think, contract types or bidding methods. I think there's a lot of different names or ways that you can frame it.
Okay, and we have 4 of them, right? There's 4 different types of one. It's kind of hiding there, so I'm going to hide it a little bit. But we have 4 different types of contracts. Can you share a little bit about how you researched all of this, how this whole thing came to fruition for you, as in like, hey, there's this type and that type, how that knowledge reached you, and also then any other thoughts you have about each one of those before we jump into each one of them specifically, and then jump into pros and cons and start measuring them against each other, but just like in general review.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to say before we get into it, there's not one right way. There's not one that's better than another. I think it really depends on the business and the people running it and the types of clients that you're getting. I know which one's best for me, and that might not be the same for everyone else. I also want to give credit where credit's due. A lot of what I've learned has come from Christo and Blair Enns. They've been sort of my mentors throughout this journey. The books that Blair Enns has done about pricing creativity, which is a lot about value-based pricing, and a lot of the conversations that Christo's had in his early videos was a lot about how to essentially get, there's a perfect proposal, how to like set up proposals and how to price jobs. So that's been instrumental in sort of this journey. And the ones that we're going to talk about is input based, which is how time and materials that you put into the work. We've got output based, so what the client essentially receives, the deliverables. Value based pricing, which is you should bill depending on the amount of value that you're going to be able to provide to the client. And a subscription based pricing, some call it retainer pricing. There is, I think, a couple of differences there. And then this is more of a recurring monthly fee to give a certain amount of work. Yes. Oh, you are the meme lord. I love your memes.
Thank you.
Should we go into the pros and cons of each then, or how do you?
Yeah, we can jump into one, but before that, why I made this meme, actually, I just made one, but I have an experience where we had a client and they were a lawyer, and retainer, calling it retainer instead of a subscription really backfired on us. Back then we were grouping with developer and designer and kind of doing a duo thing, just because retainer and subscription is not the same thing, and it can be miscommunication, which leads to maybe badly ended projects, especially if clients don't maybe know exactly how web development and how the process works and how the website is never done. It's just in a certain stage at a certain time. So that's where the meme came, because I really got burned one time by realizing we should not have used that word.
But what was the worries that person had, or the lawyer had, like when you called it a retainer?
Because, then they expect kind of, then it's expected that you have some sort of deliverable, and if they don't need to pay every month, it's more about when we reach certain thresholds, then we're gonna up the retainer, and can be hour based. Well, in this case, it was hour based, which again, I learned also that never, ever I am calculating hours ever again. For myself, yes, but not for clients, especially for what I do and what we do, because it's just unfair for everybody involved. It kind of proves you to be unproductive, makes you to be, hey, I get paid more if we do it slower, and I don't think that's the way to go in life. And another thing is then clients can have certain expectations for certain hour works. They can be higher or lower because they don't know how long does a CMS backend construction for 12 CMS collection take. it can, and maybe they tried Wix or something else, and back there it was very simple. So, so then you kind of get into those zones where their expected behavior for that retainer amount might not match. Sometimes of stuff they don't know, sometimes of how they imagine 1 hour, how much it's worth. So that's where 2 lessons I learned with that, and never ever it's going to be used in my vocabulary: retainer and hour pricing, because it's just not the right thing for nobody involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the differences I see between a retainer and a subscription is essentially just perspective. If you think about a retainer, that's been around for a long time when it comes to service-based companies, and that's usually say, okay, we're going to give you, as a service provider, we're going to give you a discount because you're going to commit to X amount of work per month or over this amount of basis. So it's nice for the person giving a retainer because they at least have some sort of recurring revenue coming in, so they feel safer, and also that the person that's hiring that the service provider, they feel like they're getting a discount for doing that. So that's the sort of mindset that people have when they think of a retainer. Then subscription based is, I think, pretty new when it comes to services. We know a lot about it from like online services like Netflix and so on. So now that it's been brought over to the services, I think the key difference is a subscription. You think, okay, I can just start it now and then stop it whenever I want. I'm not thinking exactly of what the deliverables within that are going to be. It's just I've got access to, in this case, a service that I can continually ask for support on. And I think that's where the difference is, because if I started calling my service on my website a retainer, people, I think, would come in with a different thought process and like, okay, within this retainer, I need to get 10 pages done per month and I need this done. So I didn't like that type of deal, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you explained it even better than I could ever. I just know that I more of a got burned and then realized, this is not something that can be translated, but also very like the point where you say, hey, but subscription is actually very, very new. It's just completely still a new thing. And the Netflix comparison is the best one, just because it makes sense. Everybody understands that if you pay for Spotify, you get anything that Spotify encapsulates in it, which, by the way, I think this is going to be interesting. So I have a question before we answer Shane's. Shane has the same question as I do, so let's do that now. So Shane's saying, Dylan, how have you navigated conversations around output and deliverables? Subscription is more outcome-based and partnership, correct? And I will just maybe add a little bit more. What I kind of was going for is that subscription feels like you get, as you said, like you get access to this platform, which is your development design or any other type of thing. And then subscription kind of always encapsulates the more you use, the more value you get, or you can not use and then unsubscribe in a few months or something. So how's that whole output, deliverables, speed, like that whole expectation management, which we all know, like agencies is all about expectation management, scoping, it's always. So what's your experience in a year in that sense of, conversation on expectations and the scopes and outputs? You're muted.
I do that too often. Thank you for that. But no, that's a fantastic question. And luckily, in the time that I've been doing the subscription model, I've not had too many problems I haven't had any problems actually with clients asking to get more delivered in that time. It's been, if anything, more stress on myself, because I feel like, okay, I need to deliver something to this client today because it's been too many days where they haven't got something. And so I think the important thing here is, before you onboard the client, before they pay for anything, you need to do, like you said, expectation management. So we have clients, and it's usually maybe like 3 different types of clients. It's going to be the clients that just need you for general support here and there, maintenance. Oh, we need a new page, and they might not even use the subscription to the fullest. There's the other type of client, which is for paid ads. Like a lot of my clients actually have They spend a lot of money on Google Ads, for example, so they need a new landing page done every few days. And then there's another type of client, which is when they just want a whole website to be built. So they'll say, how long will it take you to do this website? Maybe I'll say it's 2 months, and then they just want to use me for those 2 months of that subscription. In any case, they usually have an idea of how they're going to use a subscription. So we'll talk through that, and then once I've understood how they want to use it, I can give them the right expectations of, okay, so if you're wanting to create many landing pages, we can maybe do 6 per month. Does that make sense for you? Is that something that you were looking at? And a lot of the time it does make sense, because clients have come from either working with freelancers or they've come from working with agencies. Both tend to be quite slow because they have other types of workload on at the same time. So they expect maybe a page to take a week. So if you do it within a week, they're very happy usually. You're muted. You did what I did.
Repeating the same mistake. So for the subscription expectation management, so the onboarding, right? We can add that. That's like a thing where I kind of didn't expect a little bit, because we come from. So your choice to do subscription-based pricing is kind of similar to when we talk about SEO, because it's always a subscription one way or another. Just because there's no point in getting into contracts that are shorter to 6 or even 24 months just to the results it takes to produce. So same here, you say, I didn't expect this part, honestly, that you say, okay, so with clients, they say, okay, landing pages, so maybe 6 a month, is that a deal? Yeah, that's a deal. So the sales process for subscriptions and onboarding, like, kind of walk us through how you guys do it. Like, how does the whole pipeline look in that sense, as in from first contact or from first interaction to the closed deal and then afterwards?
Yeah, so maybe what will give this more context is if I talk about how it used to be, and how probably a lot of viewers have had it or doing it now as well. Is there would be a lead that would come through. Maybe I found them through outreach, or maybe they've come to me for a referral, whatever it might be. And they'll say, how much is it for a website? Then you'd say, I don't know. It depends how big the website is, how complex it is, what you need to achieve. So then we'd have maybe a half an hour meeting, a 45-minute meeting to just learn about what they need, find out what the scope is. And in that time, we'd probably try to find out like how much they can afford, how much you can price them, and so on. If you're good at this, you would, within the first 5 minutes, give a sort of like a range of what your projects usually cost, and that will save you time. But let's say that you don't do that too well, and you end up then creating a proposal which takes you a while to do. Then you present it to the client, and then they could either accept or reject it. To me, it was maybe I'd win 20% of, or 25%, I would say, of the leads that I'd get in previously, just because the pricing wasn't what they expected, and they were fishing and talking to lots of agencies at the same time. Now how it works is we have a 20-minute call, usually. I explain to them and show them how easy it is for them to add tasks. I have a back-end portal where they just add a task, and they can set their priority, add their brief. And it's like, wow, the clients love this, because it's so easy for them to not have to jump onto meetings, not have to, look at like the whole scope of work and agree on that. And there's no back and forth, no negotiation. It's like, yeah, just send your tasks and we'll get it done without a problem. So once I've sort of walked through them, then I'll try and understand what they're actually looking for and what they'd like to achieve. I then let them know how realistic it is, what they want to do and their time frame, and see if it works with what they're saying. Then I do a bit of an anti-sale where I'll just say to them, listen, we don't take calls. This is something that I learned from Brett as well, from Design Joy. He just never takes any calls because it does kill the flow. If I've got some clients that need to get work done, I can't take calls with them every time they want to give a brief. Some clients will just take a call. It'll take an hour just to change some sections around. So I think it's really important to set those expectations early and say that's the way it is. And then usually, if they're ever doubting whether they need to do a whole month or whether this is going to work for them, or if they're going to have enough consistent work, so we offer people to pause the subscription. So if it takes, if they join for 1 month of the subscription and actually have 2 weeks of work, then they can pause it and use those other 2 weeks, 6 months down the line, if that's when they want to use it. So that's when they really love it. They usually fall in love with that aspect of it, because it's pretty free to them. They're not having to pay a massive amount just for a small amount of work. And luckily, I think I'm closing like 90% of the calls I have, because they're so qualified already. They've already seen my website, they've seen the pricings, they kind of understand what we're doing. They're just jumping on the call to see if I'm a normal person. So I'd say, like, to be fair, I think I've only lost, out of the calls that I've done, maybe 2 clients didn't sign. So it's more than 90% that I'm getting.
Okay, that's actually very amazing success story. I love the way you present it. And I also love the end to sale part, which is interesting take, but I get where this is going. In SEO, we do that also quite a lot. It's not directly trying to talk them over, but actually to forcing them to weigh some things that, and as you kind of risk management, that part, like talking about, hey, there is risks in everything in here. But when it comes to pausing and working on a subscription as a Webflow developer designer, do you see a lot of that happening, or do you see like clients more happy to pay along just to know that you're always one reach ahead, one form filling ahead so the task will be completed? Like, how does that whole after process look? I'm not saying just the churn itself, as in how many of them just pause and never come back, but like in general, how does the workday and all that stuff, client management, looks after you guys close it, after you have them going? Like, what's the benefits and downsides there, you would say?
Yeah, well, I expected, in terms of the question on pausing, I expected customers to use it a lot more. For them to just constantly be like, okay, 1 week work, pause. I'm too busy to give you any briefs or anything right now. But I'm surprised. Sometimes I have, some of my clients that they'll not give me a task for 2 weeks, and I'll start feeling really guilty. I overthink. I'm a bit of a people pleaser. I always want to do the best work I possibly can, and I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage of anything. So I'll either message them and say, hey, do you want to pause, because I realise that you're maybe too busy to give us any work. And then, there's been occasions where they've said yes to that, but they've never actually come and asked to pause the subscription. And in terms of, like, I think, what was it you were asking? Is it how like the day-to-day looks with the client engagement? Or?
Yeah, how does the day-to-day look? Because I imagine a lot of, well, especially when you have strategy in mind, right? Here, I think it's the opposite. So I'm used to thinking from terms of strategy, right? There's a lot of strategy involved. Therefore, there's a lot of Slack messages and chats, and you still don't make meetings, but it's more of a, hey, we need to, you look into this. Can you research this strategy? Can you do that, right? So that's how I'm used to working. And I'm now trying to get into your shoes and thinking, how does Dylan's day work? Because you picked this for a reason, and you're probably very happy with your day-to-day overall and month to month and week to week, kind of how is everything going? So tell us a bit more about that.
It's funny, I actually said the other day to my partner, I said, I feel like I'm Mr. Slack man, because I'm on Slack all day. So a lot of my day is comprised of project management. When I first started, I was doing a lot of the development myself, a lot of the design myself. And I would just end up sometimes getting a bit overwhelmed, because all I could do at that point is work in the business to get tasks done, and I wasn't able to do it. I had to pause all my marketing, had to close like the client calls, just to wait until I was being able to do enough work. So then I've now, as I've been hiring more and more, it's been really nice, because I can just focus on growing Nexus Creative. So with client communication, like I said before, they've got a portal where they can add their tasks. And if there's any questions to the task, I'll usually ask them within that. They've got a whole comment section, and that's where we'll talk. Sometimes the client wants to just get some advice on, what do you think about this? Whether it will be just like for SEO reasons, for like plausibility of doing certain sections, maybe if there's some API connections or whatever it might be. And that conversation can happen a lot through Slack. It's quite dynamic. And in terms of how I manage with my team, it's Asana we're still using. It's just so easy to move around, prioritize tasks, and get people on it, give due dates. So that's how I manage my team, really. So my day-to-day tends to be A lot of like quality assurance, making sure everything looks good, some development, some chit chat with clients, and project management generally.
So you guys still do chit chat on Slack? That's still included in the subscription?
It's I don't know about included, but I still like, I'm not going to just blank a client if they start talking to me. So I still get to it, and I enjoy giving advice. To be fair, I find it fun, and I want the best for the client. So a lot of the time it is, you know, if they win, I win. So I'm happy to be more of like a partner in that regard.
Okay, let's jump to Shane's question before we actually do a very quick rundown of all 4 different types. It was really amazing to hear how you manage things and all that stuff. And Shane is saying, are there any requests you say no to, or does everything just take a certain amount of time? How does that whole, saying no is a good question. How does that work? And overall, any ideas on Shane's question?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So at the beginning, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to say yes to everything, and I'll learn it because I love to take challenges on. So, you know, when clients would ask for stuff that maybe are a bit more advanced, and maybe it was like certain connections to their CRM systems, and they want things like some sort of data to be displayed in a way, I was like, yep, I'll take it on, and you know, maybe it'll take a week for it to be done because I don't know how to do it, and that's on you, kind of thing. So I'm not an expert, but I can do it. I'll always be upfront about it. But that just ended up being a bad idea. I just like, I'd have some clients where they would have the weirdest CRM, and there was certain integrations that wouldn't work the way I wanted to work, and I would just end up spending 16 hours trying to figure out one small problem that would have taken anyone else much less time. So from now, and what that would do is cause so much stress that it would be hard for me to serve all the other clients well. So what I've learned is to, unless I know how to do something specifically and I know that I can do it, or that my team can do it, I'll just say no. Because when we do this initial call as well, I do explain this is strictly Webflow native, and if they have the design subscription, design or any Figma design that they need is also within that.
Okay, all right. So want to jump into the 4 models, do a quick rundown on pros and cons, and then just pick it up from there. I think this is wait, okay, Penny has one more question, and then we do that, okay? So are you only doing design and Webflow dev, or you get into JavaScript and other no-code tools? So you kind of already touched on the subject a little bit, but just Penny wants to learn more about that side of things.
Yeah, my subscription is limited to design and Webflow development, but I'm also really like to learn new things. So there is times that I'm stepping out of that comfort zone and more doing it as like on the side as okay, let's try and figure this out and work it out. And then also we do have like not many, and I'm trying to limit this because I want to keep myself streamlined and want to productize everything that I'm doing. But we do also have some like side projects that come in, and they don't go within the subscription. They just want to have like a defined scope and deliverables, and they'll need some like more custom advanced JavaScript, so we'll help with sourcing and getting that done if it makes sense to the client. But this is becoming less and less just because I'm getting everyone to go through the subscription.
So basically, the better the onboarding, the less unexpected tasks you guys get, because the expectancy management the kind of helps the hair, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's I think it might have been Blair Enns that said this, but less variables, fewer variables equals fewer outcomes. That's the one, and that's been so true. That the less, like, the more I stick to processes and the more that I stick to one way of doing it, the less like different things can appear, and I just know what result I'm gonna get.
All right, let's jump back into the Figma, and let's move first through all 3 others. So wait, did I made a, yeah. So first one we have is input-based pricing. Can you tell us real quick what it is, how we would recognize that it's input-based pricing, and then we can jump into a few pros and cons of it. And I'm gonna be typing, so I'm gonna mute myself. So it might take a hot moment for me to jump back in, but yeah, go for it.
Sounds good. So input-based pricing, this is what we were saying before. It's about how much you're putting into it. So that could be time and materials. I think most freelancers and most freelancers start here because it is like the more traditional way of doing it. And I think if we want to start straight away with the pros, you're not going to go bankrupt doing it this way because in terms of telling the client, you're telling they're the ones that are assuming a risk. You have no risk whatsoever because if you work more hours, they're going to pay you more, and that's just the way it is. I think the more pros that we have is, like we said, there's no scope creep. So when you have I think everyone in this chat probably has experienced scope creep, where you speak to a client and you have this defined scope that you've agreed on, and then it's like, oh no, but there's some gray area. We expected this to be included. Can you just do this one task? It won't take you long. With this, if they want to do that one more task, it works out well for you because you're getting paid more. And then there's also, like, you remember when I was talking before about how long it would take just to get a deal, just because you would have to go through that whole half an hour intro conversation to understand what the scope is, and then spend hours figuring out what the proposal was meant to be after. So there was like the sales pipeline would be so much shorter, so much quicker, because it doesn't matter if you don't have every single nook and cranny and detail understood in the discovery. So it's a much quicker discovery, I'd say, or like a sales cycle maybe is a better word for it. And I think I think this is probably best, like, if you're haven't got too much experience with if you're quite new to this industry and you don't know how long things take and you don't know the value that you're going to produce, this is probably better for you if you have a little bit less experience, because it means you're just doing work and you're figuring it out. I think this is the sort of main pros that I can think of. I don't know if anyone else has more to add to this.
Yeah, guys, if you have any ideas to what we should add, Shane says he never thought about the super short sales cycle about this. I'll try to keep my my mic on and myself in. Tell me if it's too loud. I'm gonna try to type real silently because I have a mechanical keyboard. Right, let's jump to cons, man. What's the downsides of just saying, I don't know how long it's gonna take, but I'm gonna do my best, and this is my hourly rate, and let's do this, and just pay as we go, right? That's something like that, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think here is essentially slower growth. Like, you can't, if you have your set amount of hours in a day, you can't automatically scale them and have a lot more hours unless you hire people, but it takes a long time to hire people. A lot of things can go wrong in that process. So you're generally going to have a much steadier and slower growth curve when it comes to the hourly based pricing. And I think another big problem here is it punishes efficiency. This is something that you were talking about before, where if you're spending 2 hours doing something instead of 5 hours, all of a sudden you've made less money. So what's the incentive there for you to do better? And then I think for clients as well, if I hire people on an hourly basis, it's such a, when I found it to be sometimes cheaper to hire someone way more experienced because they could do it in 1 hour instead of 10 hours for a newbie. So that's one of the things I don't really like about this strategy, because I think you should always have the thought process or the mindset of, I want to do the best I can for the client. I want to do it as quick as I can for them and make it work out. And then here you're kind of your incentives aren't exactly aligned.
Do you think both client and you lose under this pricing model, or is just the one side, or what are your thoughts on this pay as you go?
This again, this depends so much on the person. If you're a person that's maybe less experienced, you don't like to take on stress of, yes, exactly, efficiency, exactly, yeah. But if you're not so experienced, you feel stressed out when the clients are asking you to do more work, which I've actually encountered a lot of people that just don't know how to say no to clients. Then this could be a really good way to work. And I think some bigger companies or agencies might prefer to hire people in this vicinity. So it might just make sense if you're seeing yourself more working as like on a longer term positions with people. And then I think like some more cons is like I said before, that your income is sort of capped by the bandwidth that you've got. So the only way that you can scale when you're busy is to just charge a lot more. But then if you charge a lot more, you might be selling your client, might be losing a lot of clients by doing it in that way, because going from maybe charging $50 an hour to $150 an hour is like a massive increase in the eyes of the people, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the main points in terms of the cons.
But I think the but we all start here. Because we all moved from certain types of jobs or hourly rates or things, and when you shoot out a freelance gig and you say, yeah, my job is paying me this much, so I will do it twice as more expensive, and they say, oh wow, that's cheap, okay, go, and they're like, wait, what? So I think this is the typical story, especially of those who moved from working 9 to 5 to this. It's always probably the starting point. You like it or not, it's gonna start some sort of this way, right? Because you don't know what you're doing and you're doing your best, and you're trying to also get rewarded, and also you're trying not to put client under too much risk. So I think that beginner friendly part is really important, because we probably all started there, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one more con here as well that I was just thinking as we were speaking there is that you can get compared so much easier to other agencies or other freelancers, because there's clients that are fishing for price. If one says they do $50 an hour and another person says $45 an hour, automatically you start the sort of mindset that the client's in is like, okay, which is cheaper to go for? Whereas if you're pricing for the other things that we're going to talk about, like the deliverables and stuff, I think it'll end up, you'll frame it more as, okay, but this person has more experience, so it's going to just come out better, or they're going to spend more time on it, and I trust them to do that. So it kind of filters out those what do you call it, price fishers.
Yeah, race to the bottom, right? All the Fivers of the world and things like that. Yeah. All right, let's move to the next one, and the next one is output-based pricing. So how is this one different from the first one? Tell us a little bit about it, and then let's jump to pros and cons afterwards.
Yeah, so the main difference here is the risk is assumed by yourself. You have now got all of the risk, essentially, because you're saying to the client, we're going to deliver this within this pricing, and if it does take longer, that's on us. If it takes less time, then we're winning. And the way you do it with this usually is you estimate how many hours it would take you, and then you'd add a buffer for that reason. So whereas you don't add ever any buffer to your hourly pricing, so here maybe you'd add a 30% increase on the price, because they're getting that insurance essentially that it's going to be done for that price. So that's the main difference. Here, I think the biggest con is that you can just start charging a bit more quite easily. Oh, sorry, win, my bad. My pro is that you can charge more, yeah. That's not a con.
All right, so you can charge more. All right, what else?
Then you can, as you're charging more, you're able to probably scale the agency quicker if you are efficient. If you're able to work at a faster rate than other companies, you'll be able to have bigger profit margins, and therefore be able to scale the agency within that. And then I felt in my experience that clients prefer this way. They feel like they trust it a little bit more if they're doing it by deliverables, especially the more inexperienced clients that maybe aren't used to hiring you for your specific services. If it's a big company and you're offering a more generic type of like work or service, then they can be more comfortable about the estimates that you provided. Like this works well when you have if you have specific, if you're quite niche down into what you deliver and you have specific processes and specific deliverables, you can get so good at it, at understanding exactly how long everything takes, and you can just streamline the process so easily because you just have specific, if you've got packages that you offer, if you have only specific services, when I did this, though, I had a lot of services, and I worked with lots of different freelancers that worked in different ways. So then it was actually a negative for me because it just took a lot longer to do things. So this can work well if you have like a small range of services that you offer or packages that you offer. And then in terms of the cons, I think obviously the big one is that you assume the risk now if things go wrong. There is also times that you create friction with the clients because there's just disagreements of what's in scope and what isn't in scope. Like, I think we've all been there where you have that conversation, like, oh, but this isn't really included, and then they'll refer back to an email where they mentioned it, and it's just a bit difficult, and you don't really want to be in that situation. And it happens a lot more when you're charging by deliverable. So just scope creep in general creates friction. And of course, sales pipelines take a lot longer now because you have to know every single detail. Unless you've packaged up really well and productized what you're doing, generally, your sales pipeline is going to take ages because you have to spend so many hours just figuring out and estimating what it's going to take, what's going to be done. You have to have a lot of conversations with the client to make sure they agree with what's in scope and set those expectations. I think they're the main ones. So generally, like, if we were to compare the bid of an input, using the input strategy, you'd say, okay, we estimate it's going to take 100 hours, therefore it's going to cost $1,000. Whereas here, you're just saying, if you have the same estimate, maybe you charge 1,300 or whatever it might be, charge a little bit more just to give yourself some buffer.
So they're kind of similar, just here you trust yourself more, clients trust yourself more, and you also trying to determine what will we need to do. So you're using that prior experience you have to kind of, the word that's coming to me is gamble, and I think it is a little bit, but in some sense, right? But yeah, something like that along the lines of, I'm a professional, I know how long it's going to take. But then you're very, very focusing on scoping to the maximum just because you don't want any unknowns to be there, as that would really hurt your margins and things like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That just it can. I've seen that companies go under because of this, because they've just ended up not setting estimates correctly, hiring. I've seen a mistake I've seen people do when they do it this way is that they will give a quote or like a proposal of a certain, and say it will cost maybe like 10K to do, and it would be for maybe a skill set that they don't have in-house, so they'll need to hire someone externally, and then that person, it falls through, it takes them a lot longer, you're paying them hourly, and you're just losing in projects where you think you were going to make a lot of profit. So I think it's you just have to be very sure about the investment that you're going to make. This is where you can go bankrupt.
Okay, that's a story for everybody. By the way, guys, if you're watching this, and I know you are, drop any questions you still have for Dylan as we go through this, and we continue with the next one, which is the value-based pricing. So tell us about what's value-based pricing and how it differs from the other two that we already discussed.
Yeah, so value-based pricing is I don't know if it's a new concept. It's newer than obviously input and output, and it's been inspired a lot by consultants. So if you get a consultant to come through the door, they'll usually charge maybe 20% or 15% of what additional value they're going to produce for you. So if you say, we're getting a consultant in because we need to optimize our infrastructure and how the workflow is by 30%, which is going to give us an extra 100 grand in revenue a year, but you'd pay the consultant around $20,000. So this is kind of the same concept. Now, when I first tried to use value-based pricing was when I was doing branding. Pretty hard to determine what tangible value you're going to give when you're doing branding. When you're saying, okay, this logo, trust me, you're going to make at least 10K more. So I think I deserve at least 1K for this logo. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I moved over to web design, web development, just because it's so much easier to look at the numbers, say, okay, listen, if we actually increase your conversion rate by 5%, at the end of the year, you're going to make an extra 100K. So does it not make sense to give part of that towards this, and we expect only 20% of that additional value that you're going to create. So then you would charge 20,000 for a website. So that's the idea here, and you know, a lot of people really love it. The problem is you have to be good at sales. Like, that's just the way it is. I wasn't that good. I would get nervous, try to do a lot of these money talks, you know. But I know that there's agencies that are just making so much money, have scaled massively just because they've positioned themselves as experts and have come through much, you know, on top. So if we wanted to go through the pros and cons, I think, you know, you're like, when you're doing value-based, you do have potential for huge profits because you could just get larger clients. You know, if it's a larger client and you end up framing it as like the amount of value or like the return that they're going to get from it, it's very easy for them to like make sense of giving you $100,000 investment, as opposed to you just going in and saying, I'm going to make a website that's worth $100,000. So it's you know, you can get much bigger profits. And the idea is here is there's incentive for both sides. It's like a double thank you. It's like, okay, I'm going to do good for you, so and you're going to do good for me by paying me a part of how good I'm going to do for you. And then, you know, you can position yourself as like a partner consultant, which is important for a lot of people. So, for example, with me as a subscription-based company now, I'm almost an order taker, right? The client just says, do this job, and then I just do it. They don't listen to my expertise. But when you're doing value-based pricing and you're having these like high-level conversations, it will automatically get you up the ranks. They'll put a lot more trust in you, and that can then win you a lot more work in the future because of those conversations that you're having. It's you know, more about money essentially, and the value that you can provide. And when you're doing something like this as well, another pro is that it's harder for clients to compare you. You know, if they're having like 3 agency calls or 3 meetings with agencies, one is saying that, oh, you charge me hourly, you pay me hourly. Another agency is saying, okay, you pay for, like, you're going to get this website at the end. You know, then you can start trying to compare those two. But then when you're saying value-based, it's like, okay, we're going to, you know, give you these results, and this is what you can expect to work from us. Does it make sense to do it? So it's harder for them to compare you.
Can I add one thing here? I just kind of was listening. So I actually see that you would also earn more client. Yeah, take your time. So I would see that you also would have more client respect that way, given the fact that they're usually business people, especially if you are talking to stakeholders in the company, right? And they're business people, and you're kind of proposing them a business proposal in a sense, which is that kind of puts you in this more of a equal to their level in their eyes, just because it's you know, it's we're talking business, we're businessmen sitting in front of a desk trying to negotiate some stuff and things like that, as opposed of, hey, I need this done, do it for me, and I decide what I need to be done. And here you're the decision maker, hence it makes you kind of equal. So this is like an interesting place to be. I think that it kind of adds that both reward, and as you said before, maybe somebody even cares about the status, but also it adds more of that, you know, you're responsible for what you're saying here, and you're responsible for the results you promise, because that's your name on the line, right? For doing or not being able to do that would be something that will affect your future.
Yeah, exactly. No, spot on. Sorry, I just had to get a glass of water. Yeah, and I think, like, so how this generally works as well, I'm not sure if I went into this, but let's say that you've decided together that the value that you're going to bring to the table will probably total 100K by the end of the year. Then you would say, okay, I just want 20% of that to be able to make this possible. You could also start charging a higher percent, but at the same time as charging a higher percent, you need to give them more security or more safety that's going to happen. All the way up to, like, okay, I want 60% of the value that I'm going to create, or you get your money back. Does that make sense? So it goes from the less percent that you're earning is for the less amount of risk that the client's got. The higher percent that you're going to make is because you're putting more things in place to make the client feel safer towards it. So then you could just earn a higher percent. So you have to be really confident with the work that you're going to deliver to do that, and very experienced to do this type of strategy.
So we're basically climbing the ladder of so far in the three different ways you can work we looked at. You're kind of climbing the value of competency, as the first one is not knowing at all. So wait, let me jump to the tab. So the input-based pricing, we don't know what we can deliver, but we're trying our best, and we're going to do it for a fixed kind of amount of time, so hourly rate or stuff. So, and then we become more aware of what we can do, and then trying to kind of avert the risks by completely scoping what we're going to do, because we already done that before. And then the next one is we become a business partner on top of that by saying, hey, I've done this before, I'm going to do it for you, and you're going to give me a cut of that. And I know what I'm doing, but also you're not going to tell me how to do it, because otherwise we will destroy ourselves in the scope, as in my opinion matters here more than yours as in the client. So it's climbing that ladder of confidence.
That's exactly it. That's like the reason I sort of ordered it here in this way is because I felt like you should just see where you are in terms of experience and see how comfortable you are. Because it goes from almost easy mode to difficult mode, because this is obviously value-based pricing takes a lot of practice. You're going to be pretty bad at it at the beginning. Everyone is. And over time, the more calls that you do, the more work that you do, and the value you see that you're providing, that's when you can get really good at it. And, you know, if you look at the biggest agencies in the world, this is how they're doing it. They're doing value-based pricing. They're the ones that can charge BP 400 million to do their logo. And they're the ones that are able to make those conversations happen where you're charging a ridiculous amount. So, you know, if you did value-based pricing and you do it well, maybe you only need 2 clients a year and you're making millions. So I think that's the crux of it. And if you're good at it, then all for it. I think it's probably one of the best, well, I think it's the best pricing strategy there is for making massive profit margins.
So should we add still something here before we move on, you think?
There is a couple of cons to this. And like you were just saying, you know, you have to be good at sales, and it's really hard to do this at the beginning because you don't know what value that you're providing. And another problem is that you really have to have a conversation with a senior decision maker to do this. You can't have it with maybe just like, you know, marketing executive. It has to be with probably the CEO, the founder, because they're the ones that are going to care about the value conversation. That's who it's going to make sense to. And that can sometimes be a challenge depending on what you do. For what, if you're someone that maybe isn't so important for the CEO to speak to, it might be hard to do that. You know, if you're someone that does, I can't remember, maybe like your printing company and you print posters. Usually you're just speaking to the design or the marketing person. So try to do value-based pricing there is a little bit more difficult, you know, because you're not speaking to the CEO. And the marketing person's like, fuck off, I just want to get a printing price. So it depends what you do, and you do have to speak to the more higher decision makers.
So I'm also hearing here that not for every type of client this would also work, and not for, especially when we're talking about type of client matching the type of service you're giving, because even the same service could work for another client but not this one, and vice versa. Even the same client would work for a certain type of service that you provide, but maybe not for any other type, just because there's also that business aspect to it. It's, you know, if you just need flyers, you're not going to prove me that these flyers are going to bring me money or things like that, or maybe you will. That all depends on
if you're good at it.
Sorry?
If you're good at it, you probably can. These flyers, this thick paper, this printing, that will definitely get you more tickets sold. So
you saw that to add a joke on that, there was a video a few days ago. I saw like enforced flyer giving when a fake person is walking before whom you want to give the flyer to, and you try to give it to them, they don't take it, then you kick them in the butt, and then you turn around and to those people, and then they take it all the time because nobody wants to get on your wrong side because they just saw you kicking a person.
I don't know if the conversion rate afterwards is very good.
That's the joke.
That's good though.
The return on investment here, it works, but it doesn't work at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I think
anyways,
there's also one massive pro here that I forgot to mention, and this is the reason that I loved value-based pricing. And this is the main reason I think you should work with value-based pricing, is you're opening up the type of clients you can get by so much more. Now, how this works is if you have a price set on your freelancing rate or your hourly rate, or you have a set price on how much it costs to make a 5-page website, then you're only marketing, or it's only going to work for people that are within that price range. If someone is a lot higher and too big for you, they're not going to take you on because it just feels like you're too cheap for us. And if it's someone that's quite a small company and they just can't afford you, then you've lost them. The great thing about value-based pricing is that if you're just having a meeting with someone that maybe owns some pizza shops, and they're not going to make that much of a huge ROI with their website, and maybe you're going to increase the value by 10K at the end of the year, then charging them like 3K is fair enough, and you're still winning, and you're going to give them some like a website, and they're happy for charging 3K. But then if you get another client now that is going to make so much more money, they're going to make hundreds of thousands from the new website you've done. It's unfair to charge just 3K. They should pay you more for that. So it means that you can work with like the local pizza shop, and you can also work for a massive SaaS company, because your like pricing will work for both in this method. So that's one of the big thing about value-based pricing, is having a bigger pool of people that you can serve.
do you think you need to be niche down to be good at value-based pricing? Because here we're talking two different, understanding pizza business and understanding SaaS business. These are two different horses to ride on, and it's really, really different types of everything. And be able to deliver value that will improve your client's revenue is very different. Not only the steps you have to take, but at the same time, it takes time. Based from experience, I would say it takes a lot of time to understand the business they're in, and maybe even business mistakes that they're making, because that's also we and marketers and website builders and online marketers and SEOs actually help with business strategy as well if they're doing their job very well. So what do you think on that front? Like, do you need to, is it here niching down a thing, or you just have to be very curious and that's not a problem?
Yes, I think in all cases, niching down, you're going to be able to provide a better service and better guesses of what you're doing. Especially when you do value-based pricing, you have to know the value you're going to deliver by the end of it. And if you've never worked within that niche, it's going to be a bit harder for you to do. But me personally, I've had a terrible relationship with niching. I've seen every video for years where it says you have to niche, you have to go into a specific niche market, just like your marketing is going to be so much more directed and driven. And I think a lot of people probably relate with me. When I was going and trying to niche into different things, I tried to niche into real estate. I tried to niche into construction technology, because I thought, okay, that's a pretty cool market to be in. I felt like a fraud, to be honest, because I didn't know so much about that. And obviously over time I would learn more, but I wasn't even that interested in real estate or, just the things that I was trying to niche down. I was only doing it because I knew that my marketing would work better and I'd probably be able to charge more for what I did. And that didn't sit right with me. So no matter what I niched, it never felt authentic. Now, if you have something that you are passionate about, or that projects that you've worked with that you really do enjoy and you know that you can serve that industry, then go for it. But what I personally did is, instead of niching into an industry, I niched into a technology. I niched into Webflow. So now I've positioned myself as an expert in Webflow, and the type of clients I work with are ones that have Webflow sites. And that's where I feel the most authentic, and it's worked out for me.
Yeah, I completely can agree here. One of the biggest issues, as we were chatting before, there are so many, for example, under the sun, different types of how you can make money online. If you want to run a small one-man army business or things like that. And one of them is like niche sites is a thing, right? Where it's just, hey, it's hard, but at the same time, it's fun. And the biggest mistake there as well is always like, if you pick a niche that's actually, it's a lot of money there, but you don't care about, then you're never going to make it. Never. Because you're going to live, breathe, listen, talk, and only do that one specific area of life as opposed to anything else. You're going to read that kind of content, you're going to watch that kind of videos, you're going to do all that stuff. And I can imagine, like, if you're, as you say, if you're not into real estate and you're acting like you are, this is going to backfire so badly. And I think the same with getting clients. Like, if you get clients with, you don't agree on values and on propositions, what they're doing, but you still take them, it's always a backfire that's going to really end badly for both sides. And that's the common pitfall that some of the less experienced probably fall into.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And Penny, what you're saying there is so true to my life. I just constantly love to bounce around with different ideas and learn new things. And this is something that I need to, well, no, I enjoy it though. It's fun. I was talking the other day to Jack on Webflow on his podcast, and I was sort of going through a bit of a thought process there. And it was, at first I was saying, you know, I don't enjoy that I do this, where I bounce around with too many ideas. But then after I realized, actually, I really do enjoy it. It's, you know, that feeling that you get when you like can't go to sleep because you're just thinking about this new business idea and like how well it's going to work. I just get periods of that for like 4 hours where I just go to hyper focus and learn everything I can. So I do very much enjoy that, and that's probably why I didn't do too good of Nishan.
Can you relate actually to the same thing? As you say, like, ideas are, I think for us, the ideas are cheap. It's just the execution that sometimes we learn as we grow not to take on them, even though we would love to. We would so love to, but you're just trying to prove to yourself that not necessarily this is a good idea, because I might get bored of this in 3 months, and what then?
Yeah. I've learned I need momentum. There's another business I tried to start recently where I had, yeah, exactly. But I had like this business idea. I think it was a really good business idea. I brought in this friend to help out with it, and it just ended up being like I put so much work into it. I stayed up really late to get it done, and he was pretty slow on delivering stuff. And by the time he did his part, I just got bored of the idea and didn't want to do it anymore. So I think it is a lot about momentum and persevering and go through. Doing it quickly can sometimes be the best thing. Otherwise, it can lose the fun.
So been there by picking the wrong partner and being like, oh my God, this is gonna go terribly. Can we pull the plug before it's too late? Because this is gonna move way too slow and it's not the same pace. I think that's a topic for another day, for how to pick the team and the partners and everything that are moving in your pace. Let's jump back to the end of it. We're almost at the top of the hour. Oh, sorry, we're already past the hour, but let's do. So, do we have anything to add here, you think, or that's pretty much it? And we move on to the last one that we started with.
I just want to if you are interested in value-based pricing, and it can work really well, you should read Pricing Creativity by Blair Enns. He explains it in such a good format, and you'd have to read it a couple of times, but the idea is just to understand the desired future state, that's what he calls it, of the client, where they want to be, and try to help them through that. And then that's where you can discover the value that you're going to provide and make it make sense to the client. So Pricing Creativity, highly recommend it.
I did the quick marketing thing and I found it. So this book, right?
Brilliant. That's the one.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, that's a good resource to start with, guys, if you want to check out the book. And that being said, we're moving to the last but not least, the best one of them all, the complete champion and winner of everything, the subscription-based pricing. So
my favorite.
Your favorite, and there's a reason, and we already learned why it's a reason. Now let's jump into the pros and cons, which led you to pick it as the best.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think the main one here is stable recurring revenue. You've got some stability in life. The amount of times with the other sort of pricing by deliverables and so on, I'd have peaks where I'd be doing so well. I'd make, you'd close that big winner client, you're so happy, you maybe made 20K in 1 month, and that's like the best feeling ever. Then you have 2 months of no work, and just like, oh my God, I can't pay rent. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's all gone wrong. And then you get another client come in, and then all the clients come in at the same time. So you get overly stressed. So there's so many peaks of the other services. Here you have stable revenue. You kind of know what work you're going to be doing. And if I'm lucky enough to get 3 new clients in 1 month, then I can plan for it usually, and I can bring on more hands to help. So stability in general, not just revenue, but also mental health from the stress. Obviously, there's like pretty much no sales pipeline because when you're doing a subscription base, you usually have your pricing on your website, which means that like when they're coming on, like I said before, it's just they've been qualified, they're happy with what's the pricing is, and you're essentially just trying to get to know each other and explain like any questions they have. So that's always a good one. And like there's no scope creep. There's like, because they can just ask for as many tasks as they want, and it takes them longer. They can be cautious about how they do it. They can sometimes not be cautious and just give random tasks out. But you're never stressed. There's no client friction. There's no friction with the client usually because they've decided what they want to ask for, and things get delivered at a certain cadence. And that's the main pros, I think. Then I don't know if there's. I think we can move on to cons.
Yeah, jump to them.
There is cons. Nothing's perfect, and it's not perfect for everyone. Like what I found, you're not going to be landing these huge projects, which are like 200K projects from a massive client. It tends to just be like you're going to get a client in, and they'll pay you for months. Some stay for indefinitely, and some stay for just a couple of months. But usually clients, because they're paying for your time, the mindset isn't, they're not going to add a task to do a discovery workshop, for example, which I think is really important sometimes, or they don't tend to like request a lot of research work, which before I'd make sure to be a big thing. We'd spend 2 weeks just doing a lot of market research. With this is it tends to be you're no longer the partner or the expert. You tend to be an order taker. So they're just ordering you to do different parts of the website. So the client does the strategy usually. You don't do any of the strategy, which is therefore why you don't do a lot of discovery workshop, or you don't do a lot of the market research. But that can, sometimes be, I sometimes prefer that, to be fair. The client does have to, in terms of this is maybe more of a con for the client, they have to manage the engagement a lot more. It tends to be that they, of course, because they're there, they're going to be the ones saying, okay, now we need this new landing page to be created. Here's the brief. Now we need to just change a section here. They're the ones telling you what to do each time, instead of you just like having your own authority and doing it yourself. So this, some people don't love as much. And like generally a smaller amount of clients will take this type of work on compared to value-based pricing, because it isn't cheap to have. And it's cheap, to some people if they are just wanting to do 1 month work to get a website done, but it's usually people that want to stay on longer term, and it's good. But like, yeah, exactly. I think they're the main cons.
All right. And what was your reasoning for picking this in general? Like, what was the reasoning overall? Like, okay, so these are the pros, these are the cons. You mentioned a little bit already, but like, which parts of these kind of inspire you the most to be like, yeah, this is the right way to live my life. That's how we're gonna do it.
Yeah, so it's like the main thing is that I realized it's so hard to like get clients if you don't have something packaged up. The more you can productize something, I feel like it makes it a lot easier. And it's so hard to productize web design and web development, because every client's website is a bit different. Some just need one page, or some need like 50 pages of loads of CMS items. So it was the best way that I found and I saw that you can productize it and package it up. The great thing about productizing is it's so much easier to sell, because you're just saying straight away to the client, this is what we're doing, this is the price. And it's also so much easier to scale, because you have, because you know the amount of work you're going to do per client, and you know how much you're going to get each month. So you can just grow the team as and when you get more and more clients in. And then the reason that, like the biggest reason that I love this the most is just the stability. It's so nice not to be like having big months and like ups and downs, and it's so nice to know what type of work I'm going to be going into, or I have to do each day and every week.
I love Benny's question, but before we jump into that, I have one that's kind of follow up on this one. So, and how did the team that works with you and for you guys, how does the team adapt to this kind of lifestyle? I assume not all of them came from backgrounds where they already work with subscription-based kind of fulfillment. Because actually, it's kind of fulfillment service. You're just getting like it's just like e-commerce fulfillment, warehouse where you're just getting an order and say we're gonna ship it in 3 days. All right, let's do this, and then it's all that mess that is happening in there. I imagine is similar, just now happening mostly on Slack and Asana and things like that. So, how do they adopt this, and what kind of learn from their reactions?
I think that it's been a lot better actually, because previously maybe we'd have just to work on one, one of the designers or developers would have to work on the same project for 2 months, and that can sometimes be a bit boring or not so fun. Now they have okay, task here, spend 2 or 3 hours on this one, another task here, so they're doing different work every day, and that's really fun. And also there's I do all of the client contact at the moment, so I'm able to just pass really easy to understand briefs, and they just have to get to work and do that, which they really enjoy. So I think it's been just a win-win for everyone in that case. And because it's so systemized what you have to do, there's no sort of guessing game, or there's nothing oh, should we do it this way, should we do it that way, unless you're wondering what type of div to use in Webflow or what type of classing to put on. But yeah, so I think in general it's just made it easy for everyone.
Cool. That's actually, I can now imagine when you put it into a sort of story perspective. I can then imagine how it's much more fun and easier to jump from this to that to a little bit, and then certain types of people would be more like that than working for 3 months on one huge massive build, and also knowing that if you fuck up, you're also losing money on top of that because oh wow, it's taking too long. That being said, Penny has 2 great questions, and if anybody wants to ask last questions, drop them now. We're not going to keep Dylan here for too long, but in the meantime, let's answer Penny's questions, and if there's no more, then we're going to end the stream there. So the first one was, have you considered doing paid discovery process to understand the client's needs before you start the actual subscription, or use first month for discovery? And actually, we'll back up this question because I also feel the same way, especially in the way we have to work with clients in Webflow. It kind of makes most sense to have subscription model, but also it doesn't make sense for the first 1 to 6 months. And that's kind of also, this is also, I'm going to drag all the knowledge you have from you, because I'm also now currently in a position where we're discovering how ideally it works on Webflow, because we cannot copy patterns that WordPress agencies use or Shopify SEO agencies use or something. We're creating something new, and so far what I've discovered is the discovery process. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I mean, when we used to do discovery workshops, that would be part of a set scope, it's just included in what they're getting, and that was okay, they're not going to fight it, the client's not going to say no to that, it's just going to happen, and they would enjoy it while they're doing it and once it's done. But it's not typical that a client comes in and thinks, yeah, I really want to do a 3-hour workshop with you and also pay you to do that. So what I found is that when most of our clients come to us, they've already got their strategy, they've already got everything established, and they're coming to us, again, like I said before, to give us orders, and they've not come in to look for a partner or an expert. Most of the people I speak with are head of marketing or CMOs. So they already have their own internal ways that they want to do stuff. So I would be happy to do it if I said to them, listen, can we spend a week or 2 weeks on just trying to figure out a good strategy? It just, they rarely see the value in that. And the most that I'll get is okay, you can audit the current site and let us know what you think about it. And that's it usually. Yeah. What else is a question?
And what else is so you mentioned that some clients pause for a time. Do most clients usually use all the time or just let it go? So basically, I think Penny is referring to the oh, you have half a month left. Do this when you come back. You still have half a month when you decide to come back. Like, how does that kind of end, and what's the experience there?
Like no client has ever asked to pause it unless I've told them first, like, you should pause it until you've got time. They don't really think about it. And like, to me, I felt like, okay, I'm charging quite a lot of money. Must be really important for them to get a lot of work done. So I'm always stressed about, okay, we need to deliver enough to them. But it turns out that they're actually, like, it isn't too much for them if it's a big company. Like, the way that they're seeing our relationship is an alternative to hiring someone full time. Like, most clients have said that to me. It's like, we were thinking about hiring someone, but instead we could just use you. There's obviously a lot of risks associated when you hire someone full time, and to have someone that's like a senior Webflow developer is so expensive as well. So they don't seem to mind. Like, you know, some clients that get really busy, they have like retreats, they have like holidays off, and they just need to maybe take a week to think of a brief to give me. So clients tend to not ask for time off, no.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. We have the same. I already mentioned a little bit that we're kind of in a similar position, just because of how SEO works in the long run, and a lot of things. It's always some sort of subscription base, because that strategy fulfillment is a continuous task flow of things. But here I agree. The goal we also immediately found was that, that you're trying to be alternative to hiring, and you're trying to be alternative of different, a little bit professionals, content writers, editors, SEOs and strategists and things like that, and even basic development and design, as in like, yeah, I'm gonna move this button for you, no worries. don't stress, you don't need to get a designer for that. It's a commitment to hire one person, and you're trying to offer an alternative to be, hey, we're going to be a small army for you. We're not going to move at a pace as that one person would dig very deep, but we're going to move at a slower pace on different levels. So it's like, instead of hiring a few people, that you need to run a successful marketing website. By the way, sorry for the cars. It's extremely hot here. So yeah, instead of being that hiring one person that can only usually do one thing, you kind of get a team of professionals that are just giving you a little bit of time, fractions here and there. Is that something kind of you also go guys towards a little bit? Because you mentioned both development and design is a little bit incorporated. How does that kind of part of being a small team of professionals for the price of one hire work for you?
Yeah, I think it works really well, because I mean, most clients, unless they're another agency, most clients don't need a full-time developer to do their tasks. So they'll usually hire someone that's maybe a junior developer that will also be doing some other admin stuff or help with like other marketing stuff, posting social media and so on. And that's what I've seen. So then instead what they're doing is they're paying the same price or less to hire us to get better expertise and to get better recommendations. Like, we have an awesome relationship with our clients, and I think that's like they put a lot of trust with the things that we suggest in terms of development and how the build should be, and not so much, like I was saying before, maybe brand strategy or like marketing strategy, which is where you position yourself. If you did value-based, you'd say, okay, we're more like a consultant for everything, not just the one task that we're going to do.
Oh, that's actually yeah, makes all the sense in the world when you say it. So Dylan, that was awesome. This was awesome. I think we could go for another hour easily.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Probably, but we have to stop at some point, and today that's going to be the point. And thanks everybody for being here. Thanks Penny, thanks Shane. Who else was here? Thanks Aruna. Thanks everybody who showed up. And also, I know that this is a little bit early for the for some, so they show up later and watch it later. Thanks a lot, everybody, and thanks Dylan. It's just been so informative. You are so well researched in these topics, and minor things. Penny saying this was an excellent conversation. I cannot agree more. It was not only well researched, but also at the same time, you clearly gave a lot of personal thought into it. It's not just theory. It's also you went through this experience of picking the right pricing model And I think the magic lies when you kind of find some sort of mix of everything, because all of us have different problems, different types of clients. We like to work different workflows. So knowing all of them is, I think, very important for us as a community. So cannot thank you more for all this experience.
Yeah, it was definitely really fun. And let's do it again, maybe in a year's time. We'll see. Maybe I don't do subscription based. Maybe I do something completely different by then.
We're gonna pick another topic, and we will not wait another year, because it was a lovely chat, man. I really appreciate it. This is awesome. So, any last thoughts you want to share with everybody, or anything at all?
No, well, just really great to be here. Thank you for the questions. And if you do have any more questions, feel free to message me on Twitter. That's like always. I'm pretty new to Twitter, but just trying to make new friends in the Webflow community. So that works. Yeah, perfect.
All right, guys. So thanks everybody for joining. This was Dylan from Nexus Creative, and I'm Serge Sorian, or just Aiva from Content Nest. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we're gonna be seeing you next week, same time. Next week we have a guest, and our guest next week will be somebody who has a UX UI design community, and we're going to be talking about some interesting design topic. Keep Twitter feeds on. I'm going to share all about that when we finalize the topic, but it's going to be interesting. It has something to do with biases and collaboration and things like that. But in general, we'll just be talking about overall web design something, and I will share more as this goes. And of course, you're going to be able to see the video scheduled in upcoming days. So thanks a lot. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Dylan. And we're saying goodbye for this week, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
And